So attachments within Sage Intacct. So um, throughout Intacct on transactional entries and most records, you can attach a file, if you will. Those files can be anywhere from a PDF, Word document, Excel spreadsheet, TIFF images. Just I haven't run across the document that does not come into Sage Intacct as of yet. It's super user friendly, super easy to use and set up, and it's very, very beneficial. So a couple of the main things is, on an AP vendor, if you have, a W-9 for that vendor for 1099 tax purposes, in that vendor record, you can add the copy of their submitted W-9, and that tags back to that vendor to where anytime you need to audit or review anything, you just go to that vendor and you'll be able to see that attachment that they had submitted. Same thing for AP bills. Well, any other transactions, journal entry, AP bills, AR invoices, so on and so forth. Again, you can add those copies of the AP bill to that transaction, which is super useful for review purposes. So with that, most of the setup for your attachments, this is an administrative function. The very, very, very first thing, attachments are by default in Intacct. They are used in Intacct, but I highly, highly recommend setting up a document sequence for your attachments. And if you're not familiar with document sequencing, it's going to give a sequential ID to any document or any attachment that you bring in. Case in point, most often than not, we do a vendor sequencing. So for the vendor IDs, it'll do the next sequence up. So as you can see here, I have an attachments document sequence. Again, you need to be an administrator, go to company, setup, and document sequences. And from here, we're just gonna, since I already created it, we'll just view it. Don't care. No, I do care. I need to actually say okay on that. Sorry, apologies. Okay, so the sequence ID, keep it simple, right? We'll call it attachments. The sequence, and that ID does need to be unique, as with almost everything throughout Sage Intacct. When it comes to an ID, they have to be unique. So we'll name it attachments. We're going to have it active. The sequence type is going to be numeric. You can put in whatever your sequence length is, whatever you want it to be. I think 10 characters should be more than enough, but you can go up to 16 characters on your numeric sequencing length. So 16 is a lot. Nevertheless, you can select the box for fiscal year rollover, and that's just simply going to be, it'll start back over on your fiscal year. Prefix, I always do an A for attachment. So when you're looking at your documents, you're at any kind of document, you'll be able to separate out what your attachments are. Okay. And on your primary sequencing, when these are being set up, you'll have a field here and you'll just start with the number 1. And then as you look down at the sequencing, you'll see that, our next primary sequence will be number 11. So that's how that is going to display on the ID. And we don't have a sequence maximum. You could set it up here, but we're okay. So the next thing, again, this has to be an administrator that does this. Once you have your document sequencing set up, you'll need to go to company, setup, and company. And you need to have edit functionality in it. All right, so from the general information tab on your company information, you'll scroll down a good little bit, about almost halfway, and you'll see an attachment sequence type. Make sure by default this will be blank. Once you set up that attachment sequence, you would select that attachment sequencing type and save. All that's going to do is it's going to make all your users love you a lot more, in that they're not going to have to identify the ID that's going to be associated with this attachment. So case in point, let's go to accounts payable. We'll look at a vendor. And we're going to edit this Massachusetts Department of Revenue. It's in our demo environment. So on the additional information tab from your vendors, you'll see an attachment field. And again, this is almost everywhere throughout Intacct. On your general ledger, when you're doing a journal entry, there'll be an attachment record field. Bills, bank recons, all those things are going to have an attachment record to it. So within Intacct, what you can do is you can click on the drop down and go add. Nobody really wants to do that because that's a bit of a tedious process. What I like to do is I do a drop and drag function. So here's my, desktop folder, and I'm going to grab a demo invoice that is a PDF. And all that you need to do is just drag it over, and then it'll process it and it'll attach it. It'll tell you done, files appended 1. So you'll be able to see what that PDF, that it does now have an attachment to it. If you click on view the attachment, it's going to launch an additional pop-out window and show you what that attachment is. So if it's a Word document, if it's a Outlook message, if you want to, capture a email of approval, if you will, for a certain thing, you can also bring that in for audit purposes. The other piece of it is you can do this drop down and view it. So by default, you'll have it selected and you can view that. In viewing this, so if we're looking at this and we see the attachment, we see that, hey, it did give us that next ID of number 11. And I do see a question, but I promise I'll get to it. I think that's, go to questions. Oh, I've messed something up now. Oh no. Okay. I'll have to come back to you on that. You do have a question, but I'll have to find it. Sorry, sidebar. I had a question on the webinar. So at any rate, you'll see that the folder has AP bills. And since this is for a vendor, let's assume that this was a W-9 instead. So from this attachment, we can hit edit and we can change what that folder is. Oh gosh, I don't have a folder set up for, we'll call it source document. So key piece on this is Intacct is always going to default your folder to the last folder that you used. So if you're an AP processor and you're adding attachments to the AP bill, if you go to the vendor record and need to add the W-9, you'll need to select your different folder that says W-9 if that's where you want to have it stored. Then when you come back, I do recommend setting up the folders for, and we'll touch on the folders here in a second, set up the folder for AP bills, if you will. So the system will remember what your last folder used was. So keep that in mind. So we'll do that as a source document, and then you can see all the files attached to this record. You can attach multiple records to it. Okay, or multiple attachments to one record, to one transaction, if you will. If you have one bill, you can do the PDF and the, the Outlook message saying it was approved, if you from, be it somebody that's not in the system to approve in the workflow. Okay, so we'll save that. And then I do want to show you one other piece before we jump over into the folders. This is better on the AP bills. So from an AP bill standpoint, from the natural list view, any bills that has an attachment associated with it, you'll see the little paperclip at the end of it. Okay, none of these, this is our demo environment, so we don't really get hung up on the whole, oh, we need to make sure that we have the documentation to back up a bill. But ideally, from an audit standpoint, you should have all your bills with an attachment on it. So again, you can see that. You can click on it from here, and it again will open up that attachment window, and then you can click on In this instance, it is a Word document. Okay. You can also go in and view that bill or any record for that matter, and then again, you can click on the attachment. It's going to open up that window that tells us where the folder is, or you can just click on the attachment, and if it's anything outside of a PDF, it's going to download, and then you'll open up Microsoft Word or Excel or whatever, and you'll be able to see that attachment. Okay. So again, you know, any of the transactions can have those. One last thing is your attachments and attachment folder storage. I will tell you that Intacct is the limit on the amount of attachments you can do is 0.5 terabyte, which is 512 gigs, if I'm not mistaken. So it can handle a lot. I'll fair warn you. If you do run out of storage, need more storage, reach out to us and we'll find out what the additional pricing will be. So I don't necessarily see this as overly useful on looking at the attachments, but we can go into the attachments, see all attachments that are in our system from this attachment screen. Okay, it'll tell us what the ID is. So we have the sequential numbering here, and it'll tell us what the name is. That name is captured from the name of the document file name. Okay, it incorporates in whatever that file name is. It'll tell us what the folder is and the date created and created by who. Okay, you can search these. So if I wanted to do a percent invoice, I can have just those invoices come up. Now, the flip side of this is I don't necessarily see the frequency with which you'll look in your attachments for specific invoices, because again, they're based in the transaction. So you would look at that AP bill, open the AP bill and see the documentation that supports that AP bill, as opposed to, I just want to see all of my attachments that are out there. Okay. Attachment folders. So on your attachment folders, super duper easy. You can add those. You can add as many as you like. So we'll call this a W9. W9. You can have a parent-child relationship on these. So you can have this, you know, under source documents, if you will. We'll go ahead and save that. And then so from here, you'll still see, hey, here's just the, you know, whatchamacallit, I can't think, the main folders, and then you can click on your subfolder to see, oh, okay, W9 is here. Okay. So, you know, if you wanted to do an AP bill and then have the AP bills broken out by your AP clerks, you certainly could do subfolders that will roll up to that. One additional piece of information: attachment folders or attachments cannot be restricted by business users. We can restrict them by employee users, but you cannot with a business user. A business user will have the access to see all attachments. So, you know, super confidential information, it is not recommended to go in via attachments. Again, your employee users, which do not have the rights to transactions, to create transactions, I apologize, misspoke. We can restrict those employee users to a specific folder. To do that, you'll go to the employee dimension and you will edit. We're going to edit Chuck Darwin. And under that employee record, you do have an attachment folder. You can select any of those folders and save. What that does is that reduces that person to that specific attachment folder. They won't be able to see any other attachments that fall outside of that attachment folder. But again, a business user is the only one that can add attachments, and we cannot restrict those. All right, and I'm trying, is there a way to make an attachment folder inactive so it no longer shows up on the drop down? And you said what, attachment folder? Unfortunately, there is not. Attachment folders are there. And the flip side of this is if there are records associated under that attachment folder, we would not be able to delete that attachment folder. Good question. So no, they're there. Oh wait, I take that back. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Sorry. I know we have to. I don't think we can delete those. Oh, it will delete. Oh, I apologize. I misspoke totally. I take it all back. Yes, you can, if you have the rights to do it. This is a permission. Again, we'll jump into the permissions real quick just so I can show you what that looks like. We'll do a subscription and it's under company, and you will have an attachment. So down in the company permissions, you'll have list, view, add, edit, delete for the attachment folders, and then attachments, list, view, edit, delete. So yes, you can, if you have those permissions, you will be able to go back to your attachment folder and we'll, fingers crossed, be able to delete this. So I'm going to delete the receipts. And it's going to give me a warning. Hey, you want to delete all documents and folders under this folder? I'm going to say yes. Cannot, because an array record is referencing it. So this is the part of Intacct, right? Of if you have records associated with something else in Intacct, you won't be able to delete that record. Or that folder. So those folders would have to be completely not referenced in any way, shape, or form. Okay. So if you create one on mistake, yes, you can delete those, but you cannot deactivate them.